they call it posting.
Cool.
Hello, everybody. We're live once again. We're live. And this week, or I should say this session, a good friend, Dan Duncan, is joining us. Dan, welcome.
Good. Welcome. Thank you. Welcome back. Thank you very much. And it's a pleasure to be here.
Yay. As a means of introduction, the blank screen that you're looking at as the major screen there is interesting, but the people who are actually talking are, I'm Hilda Gottlieb, and I'm with Creating the Future.
And I'm Dimitri Petropoulos with Creating the Future.
And today we are continuing our asset-based resource development planning and diving into looking at one of the physical resources that we have upon which to build. Quick review. Where do you want this, Dimitri? Where's the best?
Yeah, if you move it over there, and I'll just...
Right here?
Yeah.
Okay. Quick review in terms of a planning process. What we're really looking at is how do we activate the assets that we already have to build support for our work. And so we identify our physical assets, which is the stuff we have. One of the stuffs that we have is intellectual property. And our people, mission, and community assets and resources, and really starting to look at how we can activate those. And today what we're going to focus on is our intellectual property, and I hate that word, but for now we'll just sort of use it as that, of the framework of community impact planning. That light is going to absolutely get in.
Well, we're going to turn it on.
Sorry.
Yeah, it's okay.
It's shining right in my eyes as if the next step is waterboard. So, oh, thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So if you guys can't see me, it's because I just turned the light off. And Dan is joining us today to help us brainstorm, so I'm just really, really glad you're here, Dan.
Thank you.
Okay. Quick review of the stuff that we did when Dimitri and I got together last week, last Friday when we were doing this. What we looked at first was our people assets, and asked the question, how can we activate the people that are in the very, very first ripple? And we always use that sort of throwing the stone in the pond sort of analogy. And so the people that are in our very, very first ripple, how can we activate them to build support for the mission in whatever way that is? The interesting thing, Dan, that always comes out of this kind of session is that when people think about resource development in the traditional sense, they always think about money. And you know, as you know from your ABCD work, there's so much more that people have to share that makes stuff so rich. And so especially when we talk about people as assets and resources, it's nice to move beyond thinking of people as wallets. So I'm pretty sure that today a lot of what we're going to be talking about is going to bring into play some of the people that are on this list. Our board, our graduates, our R&D lab teams that you are one of, our program participants, etc. So I just wanted to put that back up on. Can people see that? Oh my goodness!
No, they're fine.
Yeah. All right. One thing, Dan, that I wanted to share with you that we've been sharing a little bit with our graduates, and I have been sort of working on how to put this into a form that we can share with others. Because I'm pretty sure that this is going to come up today as well. And Dimitri, tell me the best place to put this. Is it here?
Yeah, I can move it. It doesn't. I can move the camera. That's fine.
Okay. Okay. Dan, you probably heard us talk a little bit about what we've been calling the continuum of potential.
Yes.
And in a very, very abbreviated way, just to help us move the conversation forward today, what we realized is that everybody is, every human being is on a continuum of reaching for their potential in a whole variety of different ways. We're all at various places along the continuum depending on what we're talking about. So if we're talking about exercising and dieting better, I may be at one point, and if it comes to reading, a book a week, I may be at another point. But that we're all sort of along this continuum in various ways. And so, Dimitri, can you zoom in here? Is that possible, or move it or something to make sure? Dan, I don't know if you can see this, but we move sort of from very small doing pieces. So, if I were to liken this to dieting, I may be willing to cut out soda. Or I may even be just willing to read a book about cutting out soda. I may be willing to listen to somebody on TV who's talking about dieting. So a very, very small doing piece to trying something more comprehensive. Okay, maybe I will try going to my doctor and talking to my doctor about what I can do. I'm still not ready to change my whole life, but I may be willing to sign up at a health club. I may not be willing to go all the time, but that trying something more comprehensive. The next step along there, so we go from small doing pieces to trying something more comprehensive, is diving in to do this in a big way. I am going to change my life. I am going to change my diet. I'm going to exercise. I want to be healthy. From there, there's sort of the ongoing practice of doing this. Okay, I made the decision. I dove in. I'm working with a doctor. I'm working with Weight Watchers. And now it's just the day-to-day. I'm keeping track of what I'm doing. I'm practicing this. I'm making this into a habit. That eventually becomes who you are. I'm a healthy person. I eat healthy. I exercise all the time. I no longer think of it as something I do. I think of it as just that's who I am. I don't even think about it anymore. And then the last stage before we go right back to the beginning is I want to teach this to others. This has been such an important piece in my life that I want others to feel how amazing I feel. And what then happens, we find, is that you go right back to the beginning saying, I don't know how to teach this to others. Maybe I'll read a little book, or maybe I'll read a little article. So you start right back on that continuum, and I'll do a small piece and I'll dive in. Does that sort of make sense?
Absolutely, sure. Yep.
Okay. Today, when we look at the asset that we have, which is our framework for community impact planning, what we're realizing is that that is an asset that A, we can build upon to build revenues for creating the future. But more importantly, we can also, one of our big exciting things as we think about this is that we have the opportunity through whatever we do to make community impact planning ubiquitous. That one of the nice things about doing asset-based resource development versus just straight fundraising is that usually you're building your assets are your mission. So the more the more revenue you bring in, the more you engage people in what you're doing, the more it addresses the mission. And so what we're thinking about is how do we, and Dimitri and I have been talking about this for the past couple of days, how do we make community impact planning, which is I talked a little bit about it in my TED Talk, I talk about it so much in Pollyanna, how do we make this approach so ubiquitous that people know of it as an option and are thinking about it when they're doing their planning? It's not a couple of people saying, oh, I heard about this weird thing, or right, I haven't heard about that at all. That it's seen sort of as one of the many options that people have for planning. And so the more we think about it, the more, if that is the case, and we look at where people are along this continuum, that we could actually build on that asset. And I think that's all the background I have. So
no, I think you've got it.
Good. Yes.
We do have Kevin who's trying to find out where this was.
Yay! Did you steer him correctly?
I believe I did. If he shows up in the tweet chat, I'll find out whether he did or didn't.
Well, hi Kevin. We're here. Does that approach make sense, Dan? Did I explain it in a way that makes sense?
Oh, absolutely. Yes, it does. And I think it's a good way to begin to think about things.
Cool.
Because I absolutely think that's particularly the last step. I want to teach others, because that's when you become a prophet around you're so excited about it.
Yeah, and the fun part for us again is that if by you sort of counter it with the ridiculous golf tournament and gala, which have absolutely nothing to do with anything, but they raise a lot of money. Versus if you can develop your resources based on what you have and accomplishing the mission. It doesn't always have to be, as people say, well, does that mean we have to charge for our programs or charge more for our programs? It's like, no, let's rip this apart and see what happens. So, okay, so we have this framework of community impact planning. And I just figured let's just, do the proverbial throw stuff on the wall and see what sticks. What ideas come up in terms of, I can't believe I'm wrecking the frame here, Dimitri. It's only been up here for 10 years.
I know.
And I'm wrecking.
You're just sticking stuff to it. You shouldn't do that.
Sticking to it. Some ideas that we've already had. There's obviously teaching a workshop. So there's everything. There's that range from doing, okay, so how to build upon community impact planning. And sort of the dual goal of it can raise revenues and it can most specifically raise awareness of this is not. And all of these will be available as slides when we get done here. So if you can't read them, when we go back in and patch the video, we'll take really close pictures of them and they'll be there. All right, so I'm just going to start up here with what these colors are. All right, let's look at workshops. Ideas about workshops and yeah.
Well, we were talking about both live and online workshops. So we're looking at
live in communities.
Right.
So that would mean
in person, I guess.
In person. Live instead of dead.
Yes.
Yeah. Or how about on site?
On site. In real life. Not dead.
By the way, Kevin said that he's there and that you look quite glamorous in the background, and so Nancy's there too.
Well, what I really appreciate, I just noticed, by the way, on the top of my Google Plus Hangout thing, it says the on-air, the resource development, community impact planning. It gets truncated, so it gets community impact planning as an S.
I'll try not to turn around very much.
We'll keep the camera up high.
Keep it up high.
Yeah, braced up.
I'm blushing already. Okay. So if there's live, not dead, on-site, in real life workshops in communities, this might be something that our grads can do. They can teach it because they've learned it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And we can do it here.
Right. And both here and in other communities. I mean,
it depends.
It depends on the community. Depends who's there. Depends on
someplace where we wouldn't have graduates.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. Well, but then they could do it too in places where there's no.
Well, and what I'm thinking is, what if we were looking at a much larger kind of program?
Hang on. I want to do this one first. So let's. Okay. So both and other communities. So I want to first look at, so this could be a half day.
Mm-hmm.
It could be a full day. It could be, we've done those 1 hour intro things. Maybe a lunchtime thing. It could be, add a learning community on there, which we've done in the past.
Yeah, I was just thinking from the perspective of, as we've done, as you say, as we've done in the past, making this a more complete experience is the right word. Fully actualized. Coming to the community, having a learning community, having a how can you take this on-site event and make it more than just the 50 people?
The hit and run.
Right, the people who are in the room. So part of it is you create a learning community. Another part of it is you may include folks who are not actually there, but are people who impact this kind of work. So funders could be a part of that.
So you're talking about who you invite.
Not only who you invite, but maybe there is at the same time something for them that's going on. I'm thinking that we've often done the roundtable.
But that's not at the same time.
No, it's not at the same time, but it is related to it. So it raises awareness. This workshop raises awareness, and that raised awareness gives you the opportunity to talk to other folks, so that it is. So that you're creating buzz.
Yeah, you're using this as leverage.
Yes.
Leverage to do something else.
Leverage to do more.
It's to accomplish something else, because it's not using this. It's using this as an asset to accomplish another goal.
Yeah. Okay.
And so part of that, I think, if I understand kind of where you're going, is the same thing that we've confronted in the ABCD world. Is sort of, why am I doing this workshop? Who wanted me to come here if it's in another community?
Right.
And what is that institutional or neighborhood or whatever, what is that support, and what is that follow-up going to be? Because it's very clear that just going in and doing a workshop does almost nothing as far as implementing it.
Yes.
So that you have to have that longer-term commitment, whether that's to coaching, whether that's to coming back, whatever that may be. So beginning to think of workshops as more than just workshops, but as I guess typically they end up being the end result instead of just a means.
Yeah.
So how do we position them as means?
Yes. And something that just occurred to me as I used the word hit and run, because for so many years Dimitri and I have used that sort of as the pejorative against half-day workshops that are the ends rather than the means. So workshops, something's occurring to me regarding the continuum. Workshops as means versus ends. I like that. I like that a lot. And that allows you to leverage it to do something that you're thinking about, which really isn't about community impact planning, but it's about something else.
Right. Well, and I'm always thinking of it in terms of the whole mission of Creating the Future,
right.
Of changing the conversation, changing the way people think. And how you started this off is that this is an approach that people think about as one of the approaches that they would take.
Right.
So how do you create that shift in mindset?
And I just want to...
Also, Kevin tweeted, and it was a question, have you explored any learning management systems as tools for doing these ongoing as virtually?
Give me more, Kevin. Type away. I want to know more. Here's a thought that's occurring to me while Kevin is typing. The thinking of the hit and run workshops being ineffective when they are the ends versus the means. I had never really, because the continuum thinking is so new for us, mm-hmm. I had never really thought about it in terms of sometimes that's all somebody's ready for.
Mm-hmm. And we have realized it.
And when we see that as one of many things that we offer, so that if somebody's ready to make it something that they want to do as an ongoing practice, or if they want to dive in and learn more, or they want to be part of the learning community, that if we can make something available at every point along that continuum, then that whole concept of a half-day workshop is a waste of time, because it doesn't change anything. It doesn't have to change anything. It needs to open your mind to be ready for the next point that you're ready to walk into.
Mm-hmm. Which still puts it in a continuum
Yeah.
of there is a next thing,
right,
and there is a next thing related to this.
Yeah, no, this is really exciting for me, because this is really sort of flipping my brain.
So what this potentially does is, again, if you do a workshop with 25 people, a hit and run workshop, there may be one or two folks that sort of get it to the point that they'd like to begin the journey.
Right.
And that may be an okay of enough end, actually, if you're doing that. So the objective shouldn't be, okay, we're going to do this one workshop and change the future.
Right.
But we are going to recruit people to begin the continuum journey, if I can use that frame.
Yeah, no, I love it. I love that. And I'm adding that up here as another objective here. We had raise awareness of community impact planning as an option, but to sort of bring people along the journey of the continuum, of their own potential. Ah, I love this. I love this. Kevin got more?
Kevin just came in and said that he also likes workshops as means and not ends.
Yeah.
And so does
Nancy.
And so does Nancy.
I know. The same thinking here then can be, instead of the non-dead live workshops, we could have the non-dead online workshops.
Real time, maybe, to describe them.
Webinars, however you want to call them.
Well, real time as opposed to recorded. Because I think there are differences there. Example being the continuum class we're doing now, which, though it has a recorded component,
I'm thinking
has a real time. I think the real value comes in the real time part.
Well, Deanne, one of the things that we did when we offered the Continuum webinar class for our grads is that we came to realize that most webinars, especially if they're for something that's bigger thinking than just, especially if they're for something that's bigger thinking than just 3 steps of blah blah, that webinars are ineffective ways to absorb complex stuff, because you learn it all. You all have to be in the room for an hour on Tuesday, and then throughout the thing they say, are there any questions? But if something's big, even sometimes if something's small, you don't have time to process it. So you think about what your questions are going to be when you're in the shower the next day. And so what we did with the Continuum class is we tried something different, which was we recorded and put on DVD what would have been on the webinar and sent it to people. Gave them time to process it, and then the in real time piece was a live 2-hour Q&A session where they could practice, where they could explore, where they could, and so I think that, I just wanted to explain when Dimitri was talking about recorded versus in real time.
That's sort of the same as the theory of the inverted classroom, if you're familiar with that discussion.
A lot of
It's a very popular concept. Nancy commented, you did one presentation in Lake Havasu, which opened the door to connect Havasu to Forum, which led to collaborations. And what Kevin meant by learning management systems is robust learning tools like many universities use with high-def video participation equals real-time cohorts of folks, and I'm taking slight offense that Kevin doesn't think that this is high-def.
I think it is.
High-def video participation. I think this is, Kevin, and I'm almost tempted.
And if this is, we're totally screwed.
I'm tempted to get you in this, log you in and make you high-def as well.
God help us, yeah, except he's probably in his pajamas like most normal people.
I don't know. We'll find out. We'll find out.
So is that more on like the tech side? Is that more on the like Blackboard-esque sort of side of the tools that make that available?
I think, and Kevin went on to say, let me go back and catch it, real-time cohorts of learning communities, each with its own sponsor, coach, facilitator that's working through it with them, and it's more scalable.
Okay, so what we're talking about then is doing stuff online. So
Right.
let's look at the ability to, let's talk about what he's bringing up. Yes. So if we were to do and Kevin, if you're available and you want to be in the Hangout, let us know and we'll just add you.
Or Nancy, I suppose. You all right?
Nancy had mentioned that she was only going to be in and out, but Nancy's same.
Okay.
Yes, Nancy, absolutely same with you.
I'd love to add either one of you guys or both, so just let me know if
Yeah.
you want, and we can.
And all you need to do is go to Google Plus and add Creating the Future into your circles, and Dimitri can add you in. So let us know if either of you guys want to join the party. If we're talking about online teaching, I'm not going to call it workshops, online teaching of community impact planning.
And Kevin went on to specify a tool that.
Okay.
Finishing that
thought.
the thought, it's more scalable for larger numbers of folks, up to 24.
Okay.
And then he refers to Big Blue Button as one tool
Gotcha. Okay.
that does this.
Well, thank you. So again, with the online teaching, it could be anywhere from just a 1 hour intro to half day, full day, cohort. It could be week long or weeks long. And I think, again, could easily be taught by grads. I think one of the things, just as an aside, that brings up is having ways, and I know that as Gail and I have been talking about doing the faculty, what we've been calling the faculty level, is having ways of ensuring that folks are qualified to teach on behalf of Creating the Future.
Yeah.
Dan, how does, I know that ABCD is relatively loose in terms of its faculty and how they ensure that people are qualified to teach on their behalf?
That's a great question, and it's been significantly debated over the years, and where it's always come down is because we believe that everyone has gifts and skills and abilities, we can't put an artificial certification on top of this,
Right.
because neighborhood folks are doing it every day in their lives.
Right.
So in the ABCD world, we've decided not to do that, which is one of the reasons that although the other thing they did is said we're not going to add to the faculty. So the 30 people they put at first, that's it. There are no new faculty members. What we did create, though, recently, a couple of years ago, were the fellows, which was because all the faculty are getting very gray-haired. So we created fellows for younger folks to become involved in this effort. but we really haven't gone down that road. It's just because and I'm not because the other thing is it's John and Jody are not into creating a empire of people either.
Yeah, and we've gone like in a million different directions with it. We've gone back and forth. We've been very reluctant to quote unquote certify for similar reasons based on values.
Yep.
That being said, we have this is not about monument and institution building. We have a mission to change how social change work is done in the next 10 years.
Right.
And the only way you do that is to get out there and spread this. And so it is in the best interest of our mission to ensure that there are more than the 30 faculty. There's a lot of people qualified to do this, and so we wind up.
I'm wondering if we need a different, not we, but you. Or, I mean, I'm just thinking that maybe the paradigms, we need a different word than faculty. You need some way that what we're doing is, again, because given with your mission, it's really folks that have to become part of it and go through the continuum and get to the last step of the continuum, if you will. But I'm not sure faculty is the right word, because the reality is you really don't get this through a learning modality alone.
Right.
And I may be thinking outside the square here, but
no, that's why we love you.
Because it's really about people that are going to walk the talk somehow, and again in their life, and want to spread that word and be I don't know, the other word which is even worse I think of is missionaries, but because it really is. I mean, I teach this in the classes, and it's the thing I'm confronted with is that the human service system, or whatever we're thinking about, the system, the way we do it is so fundamentally flawed that it takes significant rethinking about what it should look like. And to think that we can get that just by going to a class and a faculty member somehow making that fundamental change occur sort of sets it at a smaller level than it really is.
Yeah. It's the difference between the being and the doing, and that said, though, there are some of the people who have taken the class and are putting this into practice and are really starting to be at that being place that feel that they're ready to teach something very, very small, maybe do a blog post on community impact planning.
Yeah.
But they don't feel that they've done it enough to actually go out and teach it. And there's some who are going to say, you know what, I feel like I know enough about it, and I've done it once or twice, and I know enough about it in concept to be able to do maybe a half-day workshop, but there's no way in hell that I could really run a learning cohort.
Right.
And so I'm thinking that, again, it falls into where people feel they are in their ability to teach.
Yeah. I also think that there's an issue that occurs everywhere, which is a semantics issue. That we use words here in talking about what we've been working on for the last 10, 20 years, that you may use the exact same words, Dan, but your concept of what those words are is different than what my concept is, and certainly different than what our intent is. So when we frequently run into folks who say, "Oh, I do that,"
right,
and there needs to be, certification may not be the right tool, but there needs to be some way of knowing that if I'm using that language, that's the language we intend here, and it isn't just.
I think again, one of the differences is it on behalf of creating the future, whatever creating the future is, which brings us back to all of the branding conversations that we had last week about what is creating the future.
Right.
And is it a movement or is it an organization? And if it's an organization, which in part it is, and that I'm going to table that whole piece for one of the big pieces that is probably going to come up when we have the quote faculty discussion, and Gail is spearheading that. But I've written it down, Dan, because I think it's really how different organizations, based on what they want to accomplish and what talk they want to walk, I think is a big piece of what we need to really be looking at as we figure this out.
Kevin commented that he understands the issues around certification and wondering how to multiply the human resources to help grow reach.
Right. And so that's, I mean, that's why I want to take all of that and table it under the, Gail is about to spearhead that effort, A, and B, under the big heading of all of this teaching that we're talking about with community impact planning, our grads can do.
Right.
In some way. If they've learned it and put it into practice, they can do the teaching, and we'll figure out the details later.
Yeah,
but I do want Dimitri's comments about language and definitions, I think, is critical, and really I just want to highlight that's one of the dilemmas we have really in the system as well, is no common language.
Yep. Oh yeah.
Maybe you know that. I mean, you've dealt with that all the time, but that really is critical.
But I think also, which brings up, and again, you know, I'm going to try and set this aside because it's too interesting and is taking us away from what we need to do. The teaching and making a practice of constantly questioning language is critical.
Yeah.
So even if you are teaching community impact planning, or no matter what you're teaching, understanding as the person at the front of the room to constantly be questioning the language is again another practice. Okay. A thought just occurred to me.
And one last thing from Kevin on that.
Yeah.
It's a great opportunity for teams of facilitators to work together to expand and broaden the reach and scope.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely, and it deepens the understanding of the practice and deepens the understanding of what's possible. So I like that. Another thought that's occurring as we're looking at this, because if we're talking about the small doing pieces, I think that there is writing that, again, both us and our grads, it could be a blog post, it could be at our blogs, it could be at their blogs, I'll put grads' blogs. It can be for journals and magazines. And we've talked about this before, like not specific to this, but I'd love to see our grads, based on their own experience with community impact planning, write a workbook on community impact planning.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Individually or in groups?
As a group.
Oh, okay.
Published by Creating the Future as a collaborative effort of our graduates.
Yeah.
I think that'd be very cool.
Clearly
What were you thinking in asking the question again?
Oh, only that some people's gifts is not writing. It may be verbal, may other things, so that would be limiting if that was a requirement somehow. Because there's other ways.
That actually raises an interesting thought. How do you capture this on all different levels? I'm more visual and auditory, so I would gravitate toward that kind of an approach first.
Right. I mean, that's, yeah. I mean, I don't like to write. I don't like to write. I like to talk. This thing. So that's why I do webinars more than write blogs.
Yeah, and I just added a video series by our grads as well.
Yeah. Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah. Just any way that the thing I was more thinking about was that it be a collaborative effort where our grads who are doing this out in the field can share what they're learning and teach it by either doing it live in person.
Well, and I'm thinking of the value of their stories. Because the power comes from the stories, and I'm sure, Dan, you've got some amazing examples that you can speak with authenticity about.
Right.
Right, and that's what really makes the difference is the stories.
Yes.
And again, on that continuum, that's why somebody can only do a half day because they don't have a full day worth of stories, or doing a 3 day, they don't have 3 days worth of stories to make
Well,
it real.
and they also won't have the what do you do when somebody does X?
Right,
Because they've only done it 3 times and nobody's ever done X.
right.
You know, you look at somebody like Gail who has done this so much,
Right.
that she knows what you do when somebody does
Right.
X.
Right.
Yeah.
Because that's actually come up for her. But in somebody else who maybe just took the class, you know, 2 months ago, 3 months ago, they won't have had that. Yeah.
All right. Kevin has an interesting post now.
To say.
Is this getting too far into
Into
the weeds?
implementation and resource development focus. Yeah, I don't know. Let's come back up. We're looking at. We're gonna give. You know, here's what happens, Kevin, and it's the stuff that we find when we facilitate. People naturally go into the weeds, and then you bring them back out. And we naturally go into the weeds, and so as we started to look at the faculty, you watched me do the same thing. We got down there, and then you start to say, okay, we've all played in this. We're going to put it in the parking lot or in the car park, and then pull it back out. So it's that balance. That's how we live our lives. Other things that we can do to make community impact planning ubiquitous that could build on the brilliance of our graduates, bring people along the journey of that continuum, and potentially raise revenues. There's an idea I had the other day that sort of does all of this, and that is, and especially in the category of ubiquitous, that is to actually have an event where on a single day, and it could look like any of these. It could look like it's a half-day workshop. It could look like it's online. I don't care about the weedsy part of it. But on a single day, in communities all over the world where we have graduates who can teach this, that there is a learning opportunity going on in that community around this. And we could do another one.
Sort of like Earth Day.
Earth Day. Yeah. Earth Impact Day. But I'm just thinking that one occurred to me the other day, and I got really excited about it because it sort of brings all of this into play. And as we're talking about it out loud now, I'm realizing that it doesn't have to be the same event. You know, I've been thinking, what if we did a half-day workshop everywhere at the same time? But it doesn't have to be. Everybody can teach at the level that they want to teach it at. That would be great.
So it's just that it happens that day.
There's a learning around community impact planning at whatever level someone in our community feels ready to teach it on that day.
There's somewhat of a model, not a total model, but something somewhat similar is there's National Philanthropy Day. And National Philanthropy Day across the country, different foundations and other philanthropy organizations in communities put on lunches, dinners, workshops,
do it their own way.
A whole host of things, but under that banner of National Philanthropy Day.
Yep. And we could call it Global Impact Planning Day.
Yeah.
So Kevin comments on this. How about pitching or finding philanthropists to invest or sponsor these to occur in their or other communities?
Hello, Mama. Ding, 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 ding.
Kevin also goes on that he loves the idea of global community impact planning happening somewhere in all 24 hours of the day. So Kevin, that's sort of like the fact that New Year's Eve happens in a floating, and someone was saying it's
And
not
the
24.
ball is always
The
dropping.
ball is always dropping. Happens somewhere in the course of that day.
I love this.
Yeah, yeah. This is. I'm. Ooh, 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 ooh. Ding, 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 ding. Another one. Okay. I love this continuum. It sparks stuff. And the thing it's sparking for me right now is that I am pretty sure, and I could be making this up, but we'll find out by just asking a single question to the listserv, that at this level up here where our graduates are putting it into practice and they every once in a while come online with questions where they're either uncomfortable or they're reaching a snag or something, that there's, you know, for lack of a better word, training or education at this end of the spectrum for the people who've already learned it, for our graduates who want to teach it. I'm not comfortable teaching it yet.
Right.
I've done it once or twice, but I'm not comfortable teaching it yet. There's the opportunity to go deeper.
Yeah, and I also think that the results are also part of that. And by that I mean that there are folks who have a history of practice in doing this, and that history gives them a different level of result in their interaction with the community and the community's ability to use the information that they have. Sort of going back and addressing using the same language but meaning something different, that there are folks who have been doing this enough that they have, as you said earlier, they have the answers to certain questions. So even though they believe they are doing this, if they've done it enough, they will have the answers to the questions. If they haven't done it enough, they won't have the answers to those questions. So being able
Or
to,
even have the questions.
or even have the questions, and being able to capitalize on the fact that there's people who do
Right.
in this, I think is, you know, part of what addresses what you were just talking about.
Well, and the thing that's occurring to me is that you know, up until this second, we've been talking about how we, as that first ripple of people who know how to do this in some way or shape, bring this out to the world.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing that I just noted down is how do we help our grads get further along the continuum with this?
Mm-hmm.
So some of them that are feeling that they're in the, okay, I'm sort of doing this. How do I bring this to the point where I just logically know what the next question is? That it's just who I am.
Right.
What are small pieces that if somebody's ready for small pieces? Sorry. Let's do this in a different way. Let's ask. If somebody is ready for a small, tiny chunk, a really discrete chunk,
Define someone.
Somebody wants to learn about community impact planning, or chances are they are the person that would be wanting to learn about strategic planning for nonprofits, quote unquote, or strategic planning for social entrepreneurs. But they're just, you know, they're at those early stages of, you know, I just need X.
Okay.
What would fill in that blank? I just need to read about it. I can do it myself. I can.
Well, you touched upon it before. You know, articles, podcasts for the audio, maybe even video, maybe some kind of tool technique or something, some kind of kit or something that gives them
Yeah, I think
materials.
that's going to be more at the trying something level. So
Well,
I'm going to put down.
I was thinking that there could be different sort of levels of it. That there's a very simple thing that they could do that gives them. I'm addressing the tactile learners. They need to hold something in their hand when they're doing that.
So a kit, or I'm using kit/workbook. And when I say workbook, I really am thinking about forms and
something like that. What comes to my mind is something like a lifeless journey. Not.
It's a form.
It's a form. It has a process that goes with it. It's more than just a form. So there's an activity, which is the question
That reinforces the thought process.
That reinforces the thought process, the tool that they do, and then the end result, which is, wow, look at all the people I didn't know I knew.
Okay.
So
that leads them into wanting to try something more comprehensive now that I have all these people.
Right, but it's powerful yet simple. So it doesn't require deep investment, yet it generates.
And what that head exploding. I hope Nancy's there. Nancy, my head is exploding. When we do, we said that there's 4 kinds of assets, and one of them is community assets, which is all of the other assets of everybody else in your community, sort of the diaper bank model. There's people assets, and there's mission assets, and there's physical assets, and where community impact planning as a framework is a thing we have that we can build off of, which we're talking about right now. There's also the way we discern mission assets is we flow chart out what a program is. So what we're going to start doing tomorrow, for example, is we're going to start ripping apart the immersion course, which is a piece of our mission. It's a program that we do. And we'll literally do boxes and arrows and boxes and arrows of this happens and this happens and this happens. And what we find when we do that is that there's all kinds of opportunities in each of those pieces. This is both of those things. Because if we look at community impact planning as the process of it, and we were to flow chart it out, there's a worksheet and a piece in all. So there's worksheets for, we've got them in the immersion work.
Right.
There's worksheets for teaching how to do vision, worksheets for teaching how to do how to elicit the various questions along the way, how to ask 10 questions that will lead you to X. But I think that breaking down that program, that asset, that thing in all of its pieces is going to give us worksheets.
Right, and I think it reinforces the idea that this is not something that is beyond their capability, and yet it yields big results. Kevin had commented that stories of community impact chronicles of the journey in either blogs, books, videos that have value and could generate revenue. And then Nancy said head exploding is good.
Thank you.
Well, I have a question, and I apologize I don't know the answer to this, but I think it leads to something here. So you've got, what is your expectation for your graduates? When they come, is there any expectation that you have as to how they'll use this learning in their community, how they'll stay reconnected to the mothership related to this, and potentially could there be some expectations built in? I don't know, I'm just throwing out an idea, particularly tying it back to revenue as well, almost like a franchise system, in that, because what you want is somehow in other communities other than Tucson, to build a cadre of support for doing work differently.
Right.
And doing this stuff. And so how can you set expectations that could help do that, and tie that back almost to, in an obnoxious comment, that part of that is the expectation is that they're going to grow something in their own community that will somehow generate some revenue, or resource. I'll use the term resources, so that we're using it the broader term. But the fact is, you do have some dollar needs as well, and so I'm just trying to play this out. It's crazy, and I don't want to, because what I'm trying to be very careful about is that we don't commoditize this, because if we commoditize it, we destroy it.
Right.
But at the same time, we do want to value the value of the intellectual property that's been developed.
There's like a million different answers to your question. It's in part something that the board has been playing with at the quote-unquote protecting intellectual property level, which raises the issue of protecting whom for what, and what is in the best interest of the organization. And the board consistently keeps coming down on the side of what's in the best interest of the organization is that we accomplish the mission. So there's like a million different answers. The thing that is the simplest answer, Dan, is that the expectation is that people will learn this, practice it, and participate with each other to the extent that makes sense for them, and spread the mission, spread the gospel, so to speak, to the extent that makes sense for them, and that's the trusting the wisdom in the room part of our value system. That people will, and what has been neat is that almost everyone that's ever taken the class is somehow connected to the community, some to deep extent, some to the extent that they're trying to figure out how to bring us halfway around the world to be teaching and building cohorts in their communities, and some every once in a while sending a check, and some sending monthly donations, and some, the real, it comes back to just as we do, you were talking about with ABCD walking the talk. For us, it's really a matter of walking the talk of everybody sort of rises to their own, the wisdoms in the room.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's been brilliant. It's brought out way more gifts than if you have an expectation and you say, okay, here's what we expect. People, as exceed everybody else's expectations when they're given their own freedom.
I think part of what also has happened here is that a nurturing, supportive environment has been created. So part of the give back comes from the fact that there's still stuff being received, and that what's being received continues to evolve and grow and be positive, so that folks who actually may not even be grads, yourself,
Right.
Are participating and receiving back from the work that's happening, and their input is building it, or an input, and I use that in a very generic way. So input could be economic input, it could be intellectual, it could be IP input, it could be it could be just ambassadorial input, out in the world. So it's creating an environment that, it's creating like a living system. I mean, I'm thinking of it in some ways like a family. I'm thinking almost like a family that, families don't operate on ROI.
They should, damn it.
They should, of course. Well, what am I thinking? No wonder my family's all screwed up. I haven't charged them adequately. But I do agree with you, Dan, completely, that there still needs to be resource to do, to provide this. I mean, to allow this to exist.
I'm still convinced, and Dan, basically the business plan, once we can finally scale up, add staff, and really rock this joint, the business plan is all rooted in the continuum. The business plan basically is that if we look at every part of the sector that we're looking to impact. So we're looking to impact the leverage points, and the funders, the consultants, the academics, the pundits, the people who then will spread that out to everybody, all the on-the-ground folks. And so if we look at all of those, quote-unquote target audiences, to use the marketing jargon, and we look at having programs that address every level along that continuum, we're pretty convinced that that is a business plan. We haven't penciled it out yet and done the spreadsheeting, but we're pretty convinced that that's a business plan that can self-sustain. That there'll be enough good stuff at the big end, so doing an immersion class balances out the fact that you've got somebody who's got to coordinate blog posts for a million different topics all the time. We haven't penciled it out yet, but every time we look at it, and I'm convinced that we can do that in the next week or so when we finish up this sort of abridged version of the resource development planning just to get us through the next year. I'm pretty convinced that that will work here as well. I just don't see any reason why it wouldn't. We have too much to go on.
Cool.
Is there anything, and Nancy and Kevin, you guys too, is there anything that we missed in terms of using community impact planning as a, let's keep doing this for just a little bit longer here. I want to keep asking this question. For people who are looking to try something more comprehensive, what can work for them? With worksheets combined into a whole system, they can play with. So that's really the kit and workbook kind of thing. There's workshops. So now we're talking about either in real life or online, but doing something that's I'd like to learn more about that.
Mm-hmm.
A few hours. I'd really like to play with that. Thinking about the people who would just attend a workshop, what else would they might buy a book. Again, I think they might actually be more, these guys might do a form if you just had a simple form, but I think these guys might actually buy a book and say, I want to go through the steps of the workbook,
right.
Which I guess is what we're talking about here.
Right.
Yeah.
That would be kind of part of that. I don't know where it fits on this, but I'm thinking about intern, apprentice. So it's kind of a one-to-one relationship with maybe other people in the community, with maybe.
You mean like coaching?
Like a coach kind of thing, which is different than an immersion.
I think that's going to be the people who want to dive in. So let's go to there, because I think people who are just willing to sort of learn about it and try something.
Right. No, I'm just
I think
sort of thinking of
okay,
stuff.
dive in. We already know that we can do some sort of immersion, and it can just be immersion into community impact planning. It could be what Kevin was talking about before, which
right.
is a class and cohort
Right.
ongoing.
Right.
But then there is, coaching, what you were talking about.
Right. And I don't have the thought fully formed, but what I'm thinking is that there's something there in a apprentice mentor kind of relationship, and it's formalized as coaching. But the story I was telling you when I was a little kid and I used to work for my neighbor, all the things that I learned from him was, the fact that I worked for him was almost irrelevant. It really was a kind of a mentor relationship that I had. And he wasn't really coaching me to do anything specific as much as he was mentoring me on just sort of life things that are going on. So that
he was mentoring you on how to think like a mechanic.
Right. And the end result for him was that he was getting some work done.
Right.
But to me, it was, okay, I have a comfort level with tools, I have a comfort level with not worrying about messing up. And that's, that was a big lesson.
The watchword. So Dan, we have a watchword in our classes, that by about day 3 of the class and everybody's head is about to explode, because really what we do in the immersion classes is you're sort of rewiring how you think, and you're coming at things from a different direction of what it makes possible, and it's a different way of thinking. And by about day 3, everybody's heads feel like they're about to explode, and they're so afraid of doing things out of sequence and as if this is like so, I mean, it's just like ABCD. This is a way of thinking. This is not a you do step A, then you do step B, and then step C. But when people are learning a new way of thinking, they first learn how to do. And so they're so afraid. And we get to about day 3, and I sit everybody down and I say, there is a 5-word watchword that you must remember that will guide you in everything you're about to do. And they all sit down with their pens and their pads, and they're like all so ready. And I say, okay, you guys ready? And they're like ready to write it down. And here's the 5 words. You can't fuck this up.
I like it. That's right.
And so that is every once in a while, if you see on the listserv people saying, and as Hildy taught us,
Yes.
you can't fuck this up.
And in the final version of this, that will be bleed. So.
No, it's going to say, you can't fuck this up.
You can? Not too bad.
So, yeah. The thought that's occurring to me all along here is that that one of the goals that we didn't really talk about, that becomes obvious that this whole process will make possible, is that this will give our grads an opportunity to go deeper into their learning and understanding, their practice, make them better teachers, and will mean revenue for them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes.
And that's where this is all going for me. And then the ongoing practice then becomes not only for our grads, and I'm sort of putting that in quotes, but also for grads of this immersion thing here. So for people who are in this ongoing, relationship here, that ongoing practice stage isn't just for people who've been through our immersion classes.
Mm-hmm.
It's for people who've been through immersion classes on this particular topic with other people that have been teaching it. Right. That's the starfish. That's the starfish.
And I think that's one of, and Dan, for your benefit, one of the things that most appeals to me about the work that we've been doing is the two-wayness of it, so that there is a continual, I don't know if it's permeability, but where learning is going in both directions. I mean, this is a learning organization, to use that word, and a process that is building upon itself. So 6 months from now, or a year from now, or 2 years from now, or 10 years from now, 10 years, if we're looking at that time frame, that the end result won't be what it is today. It'll be enhanced because of everything that has happened in between. So unlike some processes that you pull out the book from your college class or wherever, and it's really done exactly the same way today as it was, 50 years ago, on some things, that's perfectly appropriate, and you don't want to change that. But on other things, there is an opportunity for them to be informed by the learning of the people who are doing it, and that's what I see this, and that's what we've been working on, is how do we have the work that we're doing be continually informed and improved and changed, modified by the work that the people who are practicing are doing.
Yeah, because if you've created a learning community, you can't bleep it up.
Exactly.
I cleaned it up for you initially.
Yeah, I noticed that you pre-bleep yours.
Yes. It was hard to, but I did.
I'll add color for what we'll do, Dan, is we'll bleep out your bleep and put in the real word.
Oh, perfect. Yeah.
I'm in sort of wrapping up what we have been brainstorming today and taking some of what we did here and putting it into the continuum. I added that for people who are looking at sort of ongoing practice and moving from the doing to the being. There's the opportunity to practice and learn more for both our grads and the grads of the courses that they're teaching. And then in the I want to teach this category is more training classes, mentoring for people who want to teach it and want to figure out how to teach it to come back in full circle. I think we've exhausted this asset.
For now.
For now.
For now.
Yay!
Yay.
So, totally unrelated aside, I have a little program I've been playing with on my phone, which is sort of a Siri-like program. This is for an Android phone. And it's in the beta stage or whatever. And one of the things that you can do with it is you tell it what to call you. So you basically tell the program, call me X. So I could say, call me Dimitri, or call me...
And so when it comes on, it says, Dimitri, what would you like, Dimitri?
Yeah, what would you like? And I was showing this to my kid the other day, and I said, well, look, I'm going to have it call me O Exalted One. So when it comes on, it'll say, how may I help you, O Exalted One? But it has the typical translation-related issues. So it heard O Exhausted One. So every time it would come on, and I left it on for a week or two because I just thought it was so funny, because every time it come on, it says, how may I help you, oh exhausted one?
Oh, I like that. So what is the program, since I have an Android?
It's called Utter. U-T-T-E-R, Utter.
Oh, okay.
And it's in beta right now, but it is a lot of fun to play.
Oh, cool.
You can make up all kinds of things.
Yeah.
So next steps, just so that you know, Dan, is we're going to be looking at all the stuff we came up with for our people, assets, and resources. Looking at all the stuff we came up with today, all the ideas, sort of expanding on them. So what could this be? What could it mean, etc. And then matrixing those. And matrixing them against objective criteria such as, A, which do we think are the ideas that we'd like to pursue, and B, objective criteria like how long will it take, how much money could it raise, does it serve our mission, does it, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Does it activate our grads, does it help them while it helps us, et cetera, and just matrix it out on a scale of 1 to 3, and the matrix.
Cool. Yeah. Oh, cool. Well, this was fun today. Thank you, and hopefully I was a little helpful.
No, you were immensely helpful. I love the ongoing. I'm always getting something out of your experience teaching ABCD.
Yeah. Cool. Well, thank you.